Welcome to Home Fashions U, home decor, sewing, decorating, and crafting. How to Sew Drapery Panels 101 is a seminar on how to create the perfect drapery panel for your. We will be discussing the elements that go into creating a good drapery treatment, the styles that are best for the look and feel that you want, the appropriate fabrics and linings that are available for drapery treatments, measuring, and of course, fabricating your treatment. In this seminar, we will be discussing the elements that make up a successful drapery treatment. We will be discussing functioning draperies that open and close, stationary panels that are used mainly for decorative purposes. We will discuss the direction that your windows face and how that affects the type of treatment that you select, and how the environment may play into your selections on a drapery treatment. When we are discussing functioning draperies, we are talking about draperies that use drapery hardware or curtain rods so that they can be opened and closed at will. Draperies can be hung with drapery pins, rings, tabs, and grommets. Traversing rods with drapery pins are probably most common, but we will be discussing other options. You can also traverse with decorative rings. We will also discuss a lovely treatment called a ripple fold that has special hardware and a track, but it creates a really lovely rippled effect, and it's very even on the window. Your basic traversing drapery rod opens and closes the draperies easily. It can be equipped with a cord to enable the carriers to move, or a wand. It moves the draperies either one way to the left or the right, or from a center split. Decorative hardware is a wonderful option for draperies. You need to know that it does have a slightly higher price. It works the same way as a traversing drapery rod, and it does use drapery pins. Here's the ripple fold that we discussed. This allows your drapery to have a very soft ripple-like fold. It has a master carrier, and it has carriers that are within the track. However, they snap to a tape that is sewn within the drapery. These snaps are perfectly positioned and spaced to create a really lovely, even drapery treatment. Of course, you've seen curtain rods. We all know about cafe rods that are wonderful for partial window treatments, maybe the lower part of the window or just a valance. They can be decorative or plain. They can be spring-loaded. We also have our plain drapery rod that is wonderful for shirred treatments and can be used beneath decorative hardware when you have a stationary panel with a valance on the top. And of course, there are decorative rods that allow you to match the hardware on your window treatment to the decor in your home. There are several designs of draperies or curtains for rods. You can have a rod pocket where you would shirr or gather the fabric onto the rod. You can have a tab top or ties that fasten the panel to the rod, or a plain header with clips or rings, and of course grommets are very popular also. The simplest type of treatment to create is a rod pocket treatment. This is where a pocket is sewn into the top of the rod, and it can be shirred or gathered onto either a plain or a decorative rod. You may choose to add a header to the top that would extend above the pocket to create a little interest at the top of the treatment, but that's entirely up to you. You can do a plain header with clips or rings, and you just simply put the pin in the header at the point that you want, evenly spaced along the panel, and slip it into the eyelet of the ring, or you can clip the fabric to the ring at a specified spacing. Grommet-style draperies are very popular right now. They create a beautiful look and they glide along the rod very easily. You do, however, have to have certain supplies and tooling to install them, and you can contact the Home Fashions U for those items. Now, when you are planning your window treatment, you want to look at which direction your windows face. An east-facing window will offer warm, bright light, especially in the morning. In the summer months, window coverings will prevent your home from heating up as fast. Which direction do your windows face? The west-facing window admit the hottest, haziest light of the day. The west sun is the hottest. So if you use inner lining, it will insulate your west-facing windows and give you a 350 R factor against sun and heat. It's a little more work, but well worth the effort. North-facing windows offer the clearest, most consistent light and the coldest exposure. Typically, it doesn't get a lot of heat, but it's always good to insulate your draperies when you live in a colder climate. South-facing windows receive good light year-round and cast a warm, golden glow on room interiors. Living in a hot climate like Arizona, the morning sun will also heat up your home. The three most popular pleat styles that we see these days begin with the standard pinch pleat, where the pleat is tacked at the base of the pleat and it creates a 2 or 3 fingered, you can do it either way, neat pleat that gives fullness to your drapery. The Euro pleat, or the European pinch pleat, is pleated and tucked right at the top so that everything waterfalls from there. It's very elegant. The goblet pinch pleat, also very elegant, is gathered at the bottom and the top is opened up into a shape like a goblet. And then you can stuff that, if you like, with batting or whatever you might like. This slide shows 4 more options for pinch pleats. You can do a double pinch pleat. This is helpful when you maybe don't have as much fabric as you would like. You can use, again, the Euro pleat. This is shown, a 4-finger pleat or a 5-finger pleat. The 4 and 5-finger pleats generally will add more fullness to your drapery. This slide shows a goblet pleat with the cutout between the pleats, and this is a very nice look. Also an inverted box pleat, a pencil pleat, which is done using a tape that you sew onto the back, and a cartridge pleat that can be done with or without a tape. In discussing fabrics for draperies, cotton is one of your best choices. It's the strongest of the natural fabrics. It's commonly used as a drapery fabric because of its versatility. It dyes well, comes in a wide range of color choices, and allows air to pass through it. Silk is a beautiful fabric for window draperies. It comes in a variety of weights, is very long-wearing and durable. Some of the finest oriental rugs that have lasted for several hundreds of years are made from silk. Linen is light, casual, and it has a fine luster. It's also a very strong fabric and is stain resistant. But linen also wrinkles easily, so it is best to use some sort of lining material when using this type of fabric for draperies. Acrylic or polyester is a great synthetic fabric to blend with a natural fabric like cotton to increase durability. It's also color fast, which means that the color will not run or fade with washing or wear. It is stain resistant, and it has sun resistant qualities not found in natural fabrics like cotton and linen. The best types of drapery lining begin with classic sateen, which is 100% cotton. Then there is royal sateen, which is 50% poly and 50% cotton. Classic napped, which is 100% cotton. Inner lining, which actually looks and feels like flannel, is 100% cotton. Out black, light, 100% cotton substrate is one that you can use to block all light coming through the drapery. These linings will give your draperies a professional finish. Because of cotton, it allows your face fabric to hang without static and clinging. Classic sateen is a premium sateen drapery lining. It's a heavyweight sateen with a softened luster finish. It's 100% cotton, 1.33 sateen, and comes in a 54-inch width. It's available in white and ivory. It has a beautiful, what we call hand. It feels good. It's got a softened luster. It is crease, water, and stain resistant. And as Claudia says, it's the best. Royal sateen is 113 inches. And that's wonderful when you want a seamless panel, and that can save you money in the long run. It's available in white or ivory. It has the softened luster, creased water, and stain resistance that the other does. It's also used for bedspreads and comforters because of the width. The only drawback is that it's sold only in 50-yard rolls. Classic nap. The sateen side of the fabric is finished with the familiar softened luster of classic sateen. The fibers on the back side of the fabric are raised to give the fabric its luxurious hand and full body for enhanced drapeability. It's 100% cotton, 1.33 sateen, it's napped, and again, it comes in a 54-inch width. It comes in white, ivory, and, becoming more popular, khaki. It has the softened luster. It is a better thermal and noise insulator. It is also water and stain resistant. It's very much like having an inner lining fastened to the back side of your regular lining. As I stated earlier, inner lining is a flannel-like cotton fabric that hangs between the face fabric and the lining. It is used commonly by high-end custom drapery workrooms. It's a technique that will make your window treatments hang beautifully and look professional. It's available in natural and white. It is 54 inches and of 100% cotton, but it's not the same as inner facing. Out black lining is a one-pass foam-coated product that offers light exclusion with superb soft hand and drape. It is a 100% cotton substrate. It's available in 54 and 110-inch widths in either white or ivory. It has this one-pass foam coating with electrostatically flocked rayon that gives it its light exclusive properties. An added bonus is thermal and noise insulation. Using layers of drapery linings can create up to a 310 R value for window coverings. The layering effect can be used in draperies and Roman shades. It will change a hot, sunny summer home to a cool and relaxed, livable space for your family. The most effective layering is using a face fabric or your decorator fabric, a layer of inner lining, and a heavier drapery lining such as classic sateen or classic nap. Lining is also available in many colors. Temp Assure drapery linings create an insulating air barrier between the drape and the lining material that actually raises the R value rating of a window, making it more energy efficient. The unique surface construction of Temp Assure linings create greatly improved ability to trap air and forms an insulating barrier that will prevent thermal loss. Our Hanes linings can increase R value as much as 300% over unlined drapes. When you are measuring for your drapery treatment, you will want to take a lot of measurements that may not seem important at first, but will have to do with the way that your treatment is planned out. So you want to have some type of a checklist, and I recommend that you download the PDF of this slide so that you have something to reference as you measure. You're going to want, first of all, to measure from the left of your window to the nearest obstruction. This may be the corner, it may be artwork, it may be a light fixture, it may be a plug or a light switch, but you do need to take these things into consideration. Next, you want to measure your window opening width inside the framing, and you want to do that at the top, the middle, and the bottom. This is especially critical if you are measuring for an inside mount treatment. You want to measure next the outside of the molding on one side to the outside of the molding on the other side, and then from the right of the window to the nearest obstruction on that side. You will want to know the distance from the ceiling to the window opening so that you can position your rod. You need to know the window opening length, left, right, and middle, as you did with the width. You want to measure from the top of the molding down to the window sill. You want to measure from the top of the molding to the bottom of the window sill. Then you want to measure from the top of the molding to the floor. You need to measure the floor to the ceiling and do that in at least 2 places. Measure the width of your molding, the depth of the molding, and any additional measurement that you see that would pertain to the design of your treatment. For the purposes of our demonstration, we are going to assume that our window is 100 inches wide. That measurement does include 4 to 6 inches beyond the window on each side. and our height of drapery from the floor to the top is going to be 108. When we're talking about fullness, that is the amount of extra fabric that we need to have in order to pleat it down into a 100-inch panel. So we take our 100 inches times 2.5 and we get 250 inches of fabric that we will need. We divide that by 54, which is the width of the fabric, and that tells us that we will need approximately 5 widths to create our panel. If the height is 108, we would add 18 inches because we have to have extra fabric for our hem and our header. So we would figure 126 inches for each cut. So we would have 126 inches times 5 widths. That means we need 630 inches of fabric. We divide that by 36 inches in a yard, and that means that we will need 17.5 yards of fabric. This does not take into account any pattern match. So this is simply a solid fabric or a stripe. There are no universal criteria, but custom drapery workrooms usually have certain standards for constructing window treatments. Fabric pattern repeats do match. Seams are serged. Drapery weights are used on seams and in corners, and a return is the distance from the rod to the wall. Why would you serge, and what is a serger? A serger is a sewing machine used for overcasting to prevent material from fraying at the edges. If you do not have one, a good option would be the Dream Stitcher at $3.99. It's an excellent price. Some of the features are that it opens up for easy access to the lower looper and threading. Differential feed so that you can use it on stretchy fabric. It does a rolled edge stitch, and it has an automatic thread trimmer. It has color-coded threading, which makes it much easier to thread the machine. It is individually tested and sewn off before shipping. So why spend hundreds of dollars for features you would never use when you can get everything you need with the Dream Stitcher? Double side hems on a drapery panel are 1.5 inches finished. They are formed by folding the fabric to the wrong side 3 inches from the outer edge, and then bringing the edge to the fold and pressing it again. Double bottom hems are 4 inches finished, and they are formed just like the side hems. All hems are blind stitched in place. Sometimes your side hems will be slightly smaller because they're proportioned to the size of the drapery, but as a rule it's 1.5 inches finished on the sides and 4 inches finished on the bottom. Lining is used where applicable and is generally 1 inch shorter than the face fabric of the drapery or the valance. So when you position your lining on top of your fabric, you want to allow 1 inch, and that is the hemmed lining, as you can see by the drawing. Buckram can be used to stabilize the top of your drapery panel. Pinch pleated headings are usually 4 inches high, and they have a 3-finger fold in each pleat, and they are stabilized with buckram. Non-woven permanent drapery buckram in a 4-inch width can be washed or dry cleaned. There is also an iron-on buckram made of polyester that is available at Home Fashions U. Also available at Home Fashion U are drapery header tapes. These can be used instead of buckram and are sewn in place to create particular types of pleats. As you can see, the cartridge pleat, the goblet pleat, the clip and wave tape, which is really neat, a translucent triple pleat, which would be great for shears, a grommet tape, and a serpentine tape. The minimum fullness standard for your drapery is 2.5 times the finished width measurement. So that is how we decided to use 2.5 as a factor on our 100-inch drapery, allowing us 250 inches of fabric. So you want to use that from mid-weight fabrics. You want to use a 3-time fullness for shears. In that case, a 100-inch window would need 300 inches of fabric to create a correct fullness. One thing that's important to remember is that upholstery fabric should not be used for drapery panels. It is usually railroaded, which means the pattern goes in the wrong direction. So you have to be careful when you are selecting a fabric that it does not have a railroaded pattern. This slide shows an overview of the items that we have been discussing. If we want a minimum fullness for a pleated drapery of 2.5 times the finished measurement of the treatment, and that is for mid-weight fabrics, we will want a 3 times fullness for a sheer. Now we are figuring fabric width that is 54 inches flat minus 6 inches for the side hems. So if we have a 54-inch piece of medium weight fabric, we are going to have a 2.5 to 1 fullness, and that 54 inches will pleat down to a 19-inch panel. That same 54 inches will pleat down to a 16-inch panel if we are working with a 3 times fullness. As we discussed, there are double 1.5-inch side hems, double 2-inch hems on the lining, and double 4-inch hems on the drapery itself, and we do weight the corners and the seams. The first step is to cut your face fabric to the correct length for your panel. As we discussed, that is the finished length plus 18 inches. The next step is to cut your lining, and you are going to want to cut your lining the finished length of your drapery plus 14 inches, because as we discussed, the lining hem is a 2 plus 2 hem rather than a 4 plus 4 hem, so you don't need that additional amount of fabric. One easy way to cut your lining is to use a workroom canvas table grid that is available in 4x8 or 5x12. It makes cutting your fabric so much easier because you can see that they are straight and square on the grain, and it makes it very easy to mark and cut your fabrics. The next step would be to cut your inner lining. An inner lining will allow your draperies to hang beautifully, as well as adding the insulation factor that we discussed. Instead of hemming your inner lining, you just want to zigzag the bottom or run the bottom through a serger. It does not have to have any kind of a hem and would add too much bulk. The next step is to hem your face fabric. So you want to have a 4-inch double fold hem. The best way to do this is to fold your fabric up 8 inches and press it, then take the cut edge down 4 inches and repress it. Then you can hem it with your machine, or if you want a professional look, you can use a blind stitch machine, and you can inquire at Home Fashions U regarding blind stitch machines. The next step is to hem your lining fabric, and since you want a 2-inch double fold hem, you will want to fold the fabric up 4 inches, press it, and then fold the cut edge down again and repress. And again, a professional blind hemmer is a great addition to your sewing room. It's good for hemming clothes and all types of home decor. With the face fabric the wrong side up, place the inner lining on the top and place the serged bottom edge 2 inches above the bottom hem as shown. Then you place the lining on top of the inner lining with the hemmed side face down. Determine the type of header you will be using to make your drapery panel. I prefer a softer look and not to use buckram, which is also perfectly fine. You want to cut the inner lining excess off at the top of the drapery because it's too bulky to fold into the drapery header. Now you will turn the lining under and trim the excess. The lining will lay 1/2 inch from the top of the drapery. So you can see the hem is 1 inch above the bottom of the drapery. The side hems are going to be 3 inches on either side of fabric, and then your drapery header. On the side hems, you want to cut the inner lining back to the drapery width because you don't want to have it into the double fold. Once the inner lining is trimmed to the fold line of the side hem, You want to lay the lining back over the inner lining and fold your side hem into place. You will want to press it as you go. Again, fold it over 3 inches, fold under the cut edges, and press it again. You want to miter your corner of your first fold so that it doesn't peek out of the drapery bottom. You want to also insert your drapery weight at this point. You press the side hem again, and you can blind stitch it. Now once you have your panel in position and everything is sewn together, you want to measure for your pleats. There are a lot of opinions about the ways to do this, and we're all about simple and easy here at the Home Fashions U. You mark the return on the ends and measure the distance between those returns. Normally you would have a 3.5 to 4.5 inch return to your wall. You would always want to allow for a 3-inch center overlap. So on the inner side where the draperies will meet, mark 3 inches from that edge, and then whatever your return is on the other side. Then you want to figure 5 pleats per drapery width, with 1 space between each pleat, meaning you would have 4 spaces. Your pleat style will determine the amount of fabric needed for a pleat. 5.5 inches per pleat and 3.5 inches per space is probably pretty close to the norm. The next step is to stitch your pleats in place. Normally you would stitch 4 inches from the top to the bottom of the pleat and 2.5 inches in from the folded edge. Make sure that your stitch is a straight line all the way to the top of the header. The next step is to determine the style of the pleat and form that pleat and stitch it at the correct point to get the look that you want. The 3-fingered Euro pleat, you pinch the pleats in place and tack at the top with your sewing machine. A 2-fingered pleat, you pleat and tack at the bottom. A 3-finger pleat is folded into place and tacked at the bottom. A goblet pleat is pinched together and hand tacked at the bottom, and then you may stuff the goblet with fiber filler batting to give it that full goblet look. A 2-finger Euro pleat again is folded in place and tacked at the top. Thank you very much for participating with the Home Fashions U Sewing Online program. Remember, we offer lots of great classes to walk you through your projects, sewing room by room. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye.
Today we covered the elements of window draperies, drapery styles, fabrics, draping linings, measuring, fabricating, and sewing. I hope you've enjoyed the class. Here are some of the resources for our header tapes. Back to our homefassionsu.com website and click on our Learning Center, and for draperies or different types of classes. As we grow, we try to include more videos and more instruction for using all of the products. We also have our store, which you're going to find your sergers, blind hemmers, canvas grid, drapery supplies, all of those types of things in our home fashion store. Hanes lining is one of my favorite linings to use. You'll find it at fabric.com. Also, for beautiful decorative hardware, check out Helzer Brothers or Kirsch Drapery Hardware. Both of these companies are to the trade only, but we would be glad to give you a quote on your drapery hardware needs.